The Club Swan 125 is the new Juan K high-performance superyacht commissioned for a passionate team consisting of the owner, his friends, and a professional crew. Her cutting-edge foil system is only one indication of pioneering design principles of Notter's Swan, and Club Swan's desire to be the ultimate leader in performance and quality in this lightweight, racing super maxi yacht. Every design aspect has been managed with intense scrutiny, starting with the innovative single curved foil solution, selected for optimum sideways lift in some conditions, as well as vertical lift in faster conditions, which considerably reduces the drag of the hull and the loss of dynamic riding moment. The complexity of construction of this yacht required Notter to team up with the best designers, builders, and suppliers in the world, to supplement the existing team of Juan K and Notter's in-house experts. The team includes two main experts, Kilian Busha, involved in the construction of the hull and structural composite components, and Bob Wiley, for the deck and sails handling, including the specific performance-driven systems.
This is the Sailing World on Water, August 20th, 2021. Here are the highlights of the sport of sailing, taken from events all over the world, held in the last 7 days. First, some news: the Sail GP in Christchurch, New Zealand, has been cancelled due to the pandemic, and in Australia the pandemic is raging. The Sydney Sail GP event is in December, close to the Rolex Sydney Hobart Race. They both are looking shaky if the numbers of affected do not drop dramatically. In this week's show we had a look at the huge, 140-foot Club Swan 125, from Juan K, who naturally blitzed the recent ROLEX Fastnet Race Fleet. The 44 fleet moved into Cowes, and had a competitive event there. We have coverage of days 1, 2 and the finals on day 4. The first season of the Pro Sailing Tour ended after a 5.5-day sail in the closing offshore leg of the race. Sam Goodchild and his crew are crowned winners of this series of the tour. They came out on top after finishing the final leg of the race, a 1,650-mile long stretch of water, from Toulon to Brest. On Lake Garda the Waszp European Games were held, and Briton Matt Beck came out on top after 5 days of heavy competition. The event was transferred to Garda from Norway for the usual health reasons. Our coverage is day 2, and the final day. In North Queensland, Australia, the Airlie Beach Race Week had around 80 boats registered, and day 1 was a blinder. One cat lasted 2 minutes, before it was hit by a huge gust and it pitch-poled, ending upside down. Just as well the beer was still flowing. The boys and girls of the Dutch foiling team were out again practicing. And they are getting very good at foiling. Frank and Charles take us on board their big maxi trimaran Edmund de Rothschild, the Rolex Fastnet Line Honours winner. So hang on, they averaged above 21 knots for the full race. Then to finish, we have the finals of the 44 Cup Cows and the European Wasps on Lake Garda. Now over to the Solenting Cows.
The 44 Cup landed in the UK for some high-octane racing in the Solent. Home to some of the most prestigious regattas, Cowes was always going to be special.
Sailing in the Solent is awesome. I mean, I only live 10 miles away, so you know, it's always good to be back here racing. I probably don't race here enough, so it's nice to be back here sailing, and the tide still seems to do the same thing, and the wind still seems to do a similar thing. So, but it's good. Everyone here has got some very good local knowledge, or local knowledge help, and so yeah, there's no easy rides here at all.
The opening day started with just 8 to 10 knots of breeze and flat seas, but as the day played out, a series of subtle changes took place that kept everyone from trimmers to tacticians on their toes. The breeze built to a peak of around 15 knots and the tide turned in the middle of the day. Both helped to deliver some very close racing. By the end of play, Airlie Racing leads the fleet with a scoreline of 3-2-1. Home favourites Chris Bake's Team Aqua and Igor Lars Sirif follow in second and third respectively, with 1 bullet each as well.
We had a very, very good day here in Cowes. Great sailing, good wind, good weather, very interesting because of the tide. The tide had the different impact on race 1 versus race 2 versus race 3. So understanding that well was really quite important, we felt, and we thought we got it relatively right. So as a result of that, we have a good day.
Stay tuned for more action tomorrow.
The first season of the Pro Sailing Tour ended after a 5-day sail in the closing offshore leg of the race, the final rush. Having skippered their yacht from Brest to La Rochelle, followed by Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, Sam Goodchild and his crew are crowned winners of this series of the Tour, adding yet another accolade to their already impressive tally. They came out on top after finishing the final leg of the race, a 1,650-mile long stretch of water, from Toulon to Brest, in which they underwent several regroupings, and a final exhilarating sprint across the Bay of Biscay. In the end, it was Leighton, skippered by Goodchild, which prevailed over Arkema 4. These two crews, who have been consistent front-runners in the offshore racing world, rightfully stand side by side on the podium at the end of this first season of the Pro Sailing Tour. The hotly fought after third place went to Ciela Village, skippered by Erwin Leroux, and his crew, who were also raising awareness for multiple sclerosis. Just 57 seconds stood between their arrival and that of Quentin Vlaminck's Arkema 4 in Brest. Tibor Vorchel-Camus and his crew, who also enjoyed a hugely successful showing great potential, taking the early lead on the final rush, which is reflected in their final results. The run we had for the final rush was simply brilliant. We all agree that we've had an extraordinary race full of contact, transitions, U-turns, intensity, subtlety, tactics and wild pursuit. We've had an amazing time, and we're happy to have been quite successful, and finishing with a spot on the podium for this Pro Sailing Tour. We're reaping the rewards of the progress we've made over the season. We had our sights set and we fought for it, said Tibor Vorchel-Camus, who skippered Solid Irie's EM peloton. Reflecting on the season, we can see that the whole fleet is very level-pegged at such a high level. This Pro Sailing Tour has given us a good focal point in the wonderfully sporting atmosphere of the Ocean 50 class, with its fair share of fighting as well as fair play. The format of the tour has allowed us to demonstrate what exactly our boats are capable of doing, not only offshore but inshore too. It's the first time we've raced so much on such varied water. The circuit has its own format, and it works well from a sporting point of view.
It had all the drama of a soap opera. While some revelled in the 20-knot breeze, others were dismasted or were damaged, which put paid to their race on the opening day of Whitsunday Sailing Club's 33rd Airlie Beach Race Week. A spectacular beginning to the week for the 75 boats, as organisers called for a mass start for the fleet. It was a spectacle for viewers both on and off the water. Racing got away at 11:10 a.m. under cloudy skies, and the solid southeasterly wind tested all. George Owen's 8.6-metre multi-hull, Charleston, was the first casualty. He takes up the story. We were two sail reaching out to the double cones when we got a serious gust. The boys went to drop the jib, but that didn't happen, and we end-for-ended the boat. Owen said 2 of his crew were injured, 1 requiring stitches, but both are now fine. The Queenslander was heartened when help arrived from many quarters. It was fantastic how many people came. Dale Mitchell, a local multi-hull sailor, was out there for 3 hours, then crews from the Extreme 40s came out in a series of rubber duckies. Shane Bayer drove some people out to help, and Ross Chisholm, the event chairman, took stuff out to help float the rig. Others came that we didn't even know. A lady from the bar came down with beers for us. She said she'd been through this before, and wanted to help us. We are very thankful to all of them. It was the shortest regatta in history for us. We were out there for about 2 minutes, Owen ended. Shortly after this incident, Damien Suckling's 8-metre boat, Top Gear, was dismasted. Then the rudder broke on Gregory Hammond's trailer sailor Roscoe, while Craig Humphrey's multi-hull, Rit Allen, suffered gear problems, and had to be towed back to base. It was an eventful opening to the regatta.
The Whitsunday Sailing Club's Airlie Beach Race Week finished on a high note, with 10 to 17 knot winds for the final race on a triangle course on Pioneer Bay deciding the day's victors, and the overall winners in the various divisions. The Paul Mitchell skippered Angus won the final race to clearly win Multi-Hull Racing Division 1. The local sailor sailed one of 3 Extreme 40s this week, and came away with 8 wins from 10 races. Back in black, Jamie Jockheim was second and Parabellum, Joel Berg, third. Multi-Hull Racing Division 2 went to Lightning Storm. Mark Leitner was just too good, notching up 5 wins, including the final race. The other light multi, Terry Archer's Genome, finished the race in second, leapfrogging Drew Carather's Big Cat, Rush Hour, for second overall.
Day 2 in the Solent, and halfway through the 2021 season of the 44 Cup, the competition is fiercer than ever.
Well, I think that everyone's back at their high level. A lot of people stopped sailing, but there was also a lot of other sailing going on. And I think if you spoke to the whole fleet, a lot of people were doing their own sailing at home. And the owners probably have come with a fresh look. And they're just happy to be out there with us and doing a great job. It doesn't feel like much has changed. For our team, we just keep working on the process and believing in the process and chip away and try to get better every day. So today, hopefully you'll see a marked improvement in our weather marks and our downwind speed.
Artemis started the day with a bullet after an impressive performance in 20 to 23 knots of breeze. Team Sirif finished second and Team Aqua third. After a general recall in race 2, it was Atom Tavutui that dominated the race by developing a small initial advantage into a solid winning margin. Aleph Racing claim the top spot in race 3 and remain on top of the leaderboard. Team Sirif follows in second with a scoreline of 2-2-2 on day 2, with Team Aqua in third.
In fact, important is not to be at the back of the fleet. It's not so important to win the races. So we tried to do it, and today was really successful. A lot of waves, a lot of wind, but we really enjoyed it. It was really fun.
More action tomorrow on the penultimate day.
We've been training in Garda now for 2.5 weeks and we made a lot of progress.
In a couple of days, the second act of the Youth Foiling Gold Cup will start on the other side in Limone, and we're super excited to bring all our skills from the last couple of months back to the racecourse. Stay tuned.
Ça va être chaud les virements dans le coin là. Il y a 30 nœuds quoi. Ouais, t'es en file là. Pour moi on est quasiment timing. 7 longueurs. Aucun danger dessous. 5, 4, 3, on est en retard, c'est bon, 3 longueurs, tu peux y aller. C'est parti les gars. Chariot à 0 les gars, c'est bon. On a 0 de rec, on a 0 de rec. Eh bien, bon départ. Est-ce que tu le vois le cargo? Faut pas que le tribord nous amène dans lui par contre. Là on vire dans 2 minutes. Une minute pour moi. Tu vois la bouée cardinale là devant toi, ouest? Faut la laisser à droite. Ok, vas-y, débascule. Sorti cette année du Solène sans toucher les gravillons. Le bateau avait une bonne vitesse, je crois que on est content, on a retrouvé les sensations là, du bateau et on a réussi à sortir avec une petite avance qu'on a fait, et on a fait que creuser depuis. Vers le Fastnet, mais c'est pas tout droit. Je pense que ça va être une nuit agitée et compliquée pour franchir ce phare.
Et comment je fais pour aller dormir moi alors?
Bon, écoute, t'as assez dormi dans ta vie à bateau, t'as un peu de rave, non?
Entre 15 et 20 le premier virement.
Sydney Gavinier.
Là, le flotteur sous le vent, il est hors de l'eau, non?
Là, on a que les appendices dans l'eau, là.
C'est vachement cool de voir passer, en tout cas.
Le Fastnet est toujours là-bas, la bouée au vent est bien mouillée.
Bah écoute, Charlie, la bise. Là, ils te disent merci, là, ils sont aux anges à bord, là. Merci à vous, et puis bonne route.
Maxi, this is Ocean One, we have you, over.
Okay, Jumeno approaching the line. 8 minutes to the line right now.
Il y a 2 bateaux dessous. Encore 40 secondes. Elle est propre. Belle nave.
On a progressé depuis la dernière fois.
Belle manœuvre, belle nave, au départ.
A bien maîtrisé le bateau et ça c'est une vraie satisfaction. Je pense qu'on est bien meilleur qu'il y a 2 ans, même si le résultat est le même, mais là on se sentait beaucoup plus à l'aise.
The final day of the 44 Cup Cows was always going to be big. Despite the overnight 7-point gap between the leaders Aleph and second place Serif, experience told Hugues Lepic and his team that they should take nothing for granted. Behind them, the battle for third was intense, with 3 teams on equal points. But few could have anticipated the way that the final day played out. More breeze was always on the cards, with the forecast showing over 20 knots, and this was precisely what the fleet got. Yet this time around, the tide was with the wind most of the day, making for flatter seas, which in turn meant that there were some superb high-speed sleigh rides downhill. With Aleph Racing staying in the middle of the pack for 3 races, it was Serif who scored 2 bullets and secured second place, only 1 point away from the top spot.
It was good that we started with a few good days, but it was stressful all the way. And what's great about this class is that the competition continues all the way until the last day and the last race, and in our case the last run. So it really could have turned out very differently. But that's what's making the RC44 class so exciting and so interesting.
In the battle for third place, it was the home team, Aqua, who managed to get on the podium, also by a single point.
I mean, we just knew we had to sail a good clean race. We'd had some difficulty in the first 2, just lots of change in positions, not great starts, but we sailed the boat very well and we managed the wind conditions very well. And and it came down to the last race, the last run, where we were able to overtake Charisma.
From there, it was back to the squadron to hand out the silverware.
After 5 days of intense competition, and 14 races completed, Waszp UK sailor Matt Beckett on top of the world. In a return to international competition that has been 2 years in the making, we could not have asked for a better event to return us to semi-normalcy. The Waszp class would like to extend its gratitude to Sir Colavella Arco, who took on the challenge to run the event after moving locations from Norway just 6 weeks ago. Arco ran a fantastic event on the water and provided fantastic friendly hospitality off the water. To be able to run the event in line with how a Waszp event should be conducted, under restrictions was not an easy task, but it was executed brilliantly. Paul Farian from Germany had the best of the final day with a 1-2-3 score line, really putting series leaders Matt Beck and Francesco Bertoni under immense pressure. Suddenly, as the scores became tighter, it was evident that you could not protect any one boat and you had to keep your eyes out and across the racecourse. Bertoni, who had an unfortunate penultimate day with a breakage, which put him out of 2 races, sailed a sensational regatta, and was still pushing hard right up to the final race, however had to settle for 3rd overall with a 5-8-2 on the final day. In the end, it was Matt Beck who did enough with a 2-3-6 on the final day to claim the overall championships, and take the crown as the best Waszp sailor in Europe. Matt was the top-ranked sailor coming into competition after sitting atop the Waszp global ranking since the UK Nationals in July. In the lead-up, Matt also claimed 2nd place at the Plymouth Sail GP Inspire Youth Racing event, clearly putting his name forward for a potential career in the sport.
Get into the groove.